Let me rip the mask right off right away. I didn't act like the victim because I was the victim. I acted like the victim because it just simply worked. It bought me time. It bought me sympathy from the other person. It bought me loyalty from people who didn't even know the whole story. And while you were drowning in the aftermath of everything I did, I was out there collecting pity. It's disgusting when I say it out loud, but back then, it was a piece of my life. It was a strategy. I figured out early on that if I could flip the script, if I could just tweak it just slightly, I wouldn't have to take responsibility for what I did. I didn't need to look in the mirror and see the face of the monster that I was becoming, but I could make it be someone else. I would just point at you and say, hey, look at what she's doing to me. And people would nod and they'd believe me. Because I didn't look like a monster, I didn't act like a monster in front of other people. I didn't scream or hit, I didn't cheat in the way that you could prove it or that you would see it. All I had to do was sigh a little louder, cry once in front of the right friend, tell a half-truth with enough emotion, and boom, I've got sympathy. I remember the first time inside of this, we'd had a fight, like a real one, and my wife was there, she was shaking, and I pushed her too far that night. But I didn't come clean and actually confess of what's going on. I just would go to a affair partner and be like, she's always so emotional. I'm trying so hard, it just seems like it's never enough for her. I have no clue what to do. And you have no clue how fast people would line up behind me. Because suddenly I would make her the problem. She was the unstable one. I was the good guy stuck in a bad relationship doing my best. And that's a piece that I loved it because I loved the control. Not because it was true. It wasn't true at all, but because it simply just worked. The moment that I painted her as the abuser, I didn't have to carry the guilt of actually being one. Then I could say it's her fault. It's not me, it's her fault. Now let me be clear. I was the abuser, the liar, the manipulator, the cheater, all of those things. I was the monster in the relationship, but I had to feel better about myself, and as a result, I learned how to weaponize victimhood. I figured out how to turn her pain into my defense. And so my wife would cry and I'd be like, she's manipulating me. She's crying, she's trying to manipulate me. She'd get upset, she'd yell. Well, she's being abusive. She's attacking me. The time when she would leave the room to calm down, she's given up. She's abandoning me. You see, I could twist every normal human reaction into ammo against her because if I made her look like the bad guy, then I could keep doing what I was doing. And then I wouldn't have to feel bad about it because I wasn't accepting the guilt or the shame or the blame. I was putting it and projecting it onto everyone else. And that's what this piece comes down to, is just simply the word permission. Playing the victim gave me permission. Permission to avoid accountability of what I'd done, of how I'd shown up. Permission to keep hurting her the same way over and over and over. Permission to lie, to gaslight, to cheat, to manipulate, because poor me. I'm just doing the best I can, right? It was all giving me permission to feel better about myself. And the worst part about all of this is that people believed it. People that my wife trusted believed it. They saw me and they thought, well, she's the crazy one, not me. Her family, her friends, even people in her life sometimes would believe me over her because I knew how to sound sad. I knew how to say, I'm trying, in a way that made people pity me instead of press me for actual answers. And my wife was at a place where she just got too exhausted to even defend herself. She looked crazy because I made her look crazy. And that's the part that I have to own now, that I have to say, I didn't just act like the victim. I forced her into the role of the villain so I would feel better about myself. All it is inside of toxic relationships is the narcissist wanting to not feel bad. So it's if I cannot feel bad by making you feel worse, well, I'm going to do that. Because then it at least avoids the guilt and the shame for me. But I would do all of this of painting her as the villain in my mind, painting her as the villain when I'm talking to affair partners of poor me. But I would do this while holding her hand in public. I'd do it while smiling at the family. I'd do it while telling the world how much I loved her, just loud enough that no one would suspect that I was the one that was actually the monster behind the closed doors. That I was the one that was causing the harm. Behind closed doors, I was the nightmare. But in front of other people, I was just a guy struggling to figure out his relationship, struggling to figure out how to make it work. Who wouldn't want to support that? Narcissists play the victim over and over and over again. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to help provide awareness and help break free women that are trapped in a toxic relationship, or they're out and they have to figure out how to heal, how to break the trauma bond, how to get rid of the triggers, and how to find themselves again. If you want to know more about that, you can go to rawmotivations.com. Inside of this, you get to a place that you start to question everything in your world. You start to question your reality. That's because I, as the narcissist, was the one that was rewriting your reality in real time. In real time, making sure that it changes. Consider for a moment, like you might have confronted your partner, and instead of like getting to a place of actually having closure, you have nothing. Like you confronted your partner because you're reading old messages, something that he swore that he actually deleted, but you were calm, too calm. And he knew that it was serious. Like looked and said, like, I know what you've been doing. Like there's a piece inside of it that a narcissist will try to get to a place where he'll play the victim on everything. And as soon as you start to figure him out, as soon as you're like, I've got your number, I know what's going on, shame floods his whole body. But not the kind that leads to change or transformation, the kind that leads to attack. You see, when a narcissist is triggered inside of this, whenever this would happen to me, I would get triggered with shame. That shame would pull so deep at my heartstrings, I was like, this is not what I want to feel because it feels like death. It feels like dying. How do I get out of this? Let me attack. Like, I don't even remember sometimes when I told different lies. Like I might have cried different times. I might have blamed different trauma. Like I might have blamed anything. But like I always would make sure I would make up different excuses and lies to play the victim. This is what I did over and over, and this is what the guy's doing in your life. I found a way, like I always did, to flip it back on the other person. That's because that's what the victim narrative is. It's a courtroom. Like I put you in the defendant's chair every time I didn't want to be there myself. Every time I felt bad or I felt like I was going to get attacked, I had to put her in a different spot. And the problem is you get used to this inside your relationship. You let him actually put you in this spot. Not because you're weak, but because you were loyal. Because you wanted to believe that if you just tried harder, if you just loved him deeper, if you just sacrificed more, then he would finally change. But the problem is he never has, and he never did. It's the same story for me. I didn't change. I continued to do the same things over and over and over. And instead of changing when my wife used to confront me, I got better at playing helpless, at playing the victim, at pretending I was the one that was getting neglected. I was the one that was getting emotionally abused. Like I was the one that she was leaving and giving up on me. I mean, how could I always be the toxic one when I was so sad about it, when I was so frustrated, when I was trying to figure it out? And that's what's evil about playing the victim. Because I didn't act like the victim to protect myself. I acted like the victim to destroy her without leaving any fingerprints so that I would feel better about who I was. There's a sick power inside of being the victim. And I don't mean the real victim here. I don't mean the person that got abused. I mean the weaponized kind. The kind where I get to hide my shame behind sympathy. Where I get to walk into the room already holding the verdict. I'm not guilty. That's got to be on you. That's the piece, is I'll always blame. And the irony inside of all of this is using your pain as an alibi. Every time you broke down, every panic attack, every emotional spiral, every quiet withdrawal, that's what he's used. He's used it and he's filed away as evidence. She's too unstable. Like, I'm going to have to walk on eggshells around her. I can't do anything right. Playing the victim. And what he's never told anyone else is why you were that way. The instability that he's created on purpose, like how he slowly eroded your sense of reality until you start questioning yourself more than you questioned him. This is what I would do. I would build a mental prison. And then I'd point to my wife and be like, see, that's why I'm miserable, because you're inside a prison that I built. The blame and the projection. This is all the piece inside of victimhood. I had to blame another person for trauma, your tone, your tears. All of those things had to be your fault. Except the one thing that was actually true, which was me. That I was the problem. I was the chaos. I was the monster. I was the liar. I was the cheater. I was the gaslighter, the manipulator, the one standing over the shattered pieces of connection. Pretend to be shocked that there's damage, that there's an issue. Why is this happening to me? And if I did accidentally admit to something, it was always just coded in enough tragedy to seem noble. Like I'm actually coming out. Like I know I'm not perfect. I've just been through so much. I've just been struggling. I can't figure this out. I struggle with emotional regulation. I've had a hard childhood. I'm trying, but I'm not okay right now. I need your help. All different types of things to try to get other people to lower their guards every single time. And the hard part is the other person. Let's say you'd offer me compassion when I should have been met with consequences. Because that's what I really feared inside the relationship was consequences. The guilt and the shame, but the consequences of those things that would ultimately tell me that I was a bad person. I knew what I was doing. I knew I was hurting other people. I knew I was hurting you. I just didn't want to pay the price. I didn't want to be accountable or responsible. So instead of changing, I had to shift the story. And you were always trying to be a better person, trying to model grace, trying to give more forgiveness, trying to show love. But that's what I used against you because it was easier to use that against you than it was to actually own up to who I was. Maybe telling people she just expects me to be someone I'm not. She's trying to fix me. She thinks that love is control when those are the very truths that I was living off of. I was controlling everything. I controlled the narrative. I controlled the perception. I controlled the level of chaos inside the house so that I could keep spinning and keeping everybody else unstable. Unstable enough so that you wouldn't leave, so you weren't strong enough to fight back, so you would fight against ridiculous arguments that didn't even make sense so that I could have control over you. And inside of all this, there's a piece of me that enjoyed it because it felt like I had power and control to avoid my pain. I didn't enjoy your pain. I just enjoyed not having pain myself. I enjoyed your dependence, your admiration, like you focusing on me, the way you kept showing up. Even after I did all these things to hurt you, that's what I enjoyed. The way that you still tried to explain yourself when I was the one that was lying to you. Like it made me feel powerful and in control. A godlike complex of I have control over another person is bowing down and serving me. Like I could bend reality at my will and people would still call me, hey, he's the good guy. Because that's what I saw over a period of time, that's what they would see. They didn't see me behind closed doors. They didn't see the smirks, the silent treatments, the slow psychological breakdown engineered one conversation at a time to degrade and devalue you, to put you a little bit less than. They saw a tired man trying to make his relationship work, who just felt stuck. They saw a guy who just couldn't catch a break, who just couldn't live up to your standard. And I became so convincing that I even started to believe it myself. It was easier to believe it myself than it was to deal with the guilt and the shame. And that's the part that people don't even understand sometimes, is it wasn't always some grand manipulation. Sometimes it just becomes a pure delusion of like, oh, I have to believe this so that I don't feel bad. Like I told the story so many times that I started believing it, started thinking, maybe I am the victim. Maybe this is the part where I'm at. Maybe you are too emotional. Maybe you are too demanding. Maybe you are just too much. Maybe it's your fault because I'm not going to find someone who actually understands me. You don't give me that space. You don't give me that attention. Like you don't even provide emotional safety. And that belief inside of all of this gave me permission, but justification. Once I believed that I was the one suffering, then everything else was on the table. And then I could cheat, I could lie, there could be emotional withdrawal that would happen, rage, and then apologies, because it was all your fault. That's what I have to tell myself. That's what I have to make sure that I know it's all your fault, because if I view that it's all your fault, I don't have to deal with me. Because in that having a weaponized victimhood inside of my life, the victim inside of me, well, I don't have to apologize. Victims don't have to change. Victims get to be broken and still be loved. They get to be broken and not have to change anything. So I stayed and played the victim over and over, weaponizing your kindness, framing your confusion as just simply abuse. And I told people out loud that I was even scared of you. And that was the dagger, and it worked. Inside our relationship, it worked. You started to see people look at you a little sideways. They might have pulled away a little bit. They might have stopped asking questions or coming around. They might have just started to disconnect some, and you get to a place that you feel isolated, which is exactly the plan. Because if you are isolated, I have full control over you. If you're isolated, you are dependent. If people didn't believe you, you'd stop talking. You'd stop even trying to convict me of stuff. And no one saw me for who I was, so I didn't have to change. Nobody could see it. Nobody could actually understand it. I could keep getting away with it, and I did, over and over and over for a long period of time. But here's the thing that people oftentimes don't talk about either. Eventually, the victim's costume stops fitting. Like eventually you wake up one day and you realize that you've built a kingdom out of lies and it's crumbling. There's a piece of me that realized that the truth was always going to leak out. Even if I was trying to make sure all the time that I was in control of the narrative, the truth was going to come out no matter what. The victim mask was going to eventually fall, and people were going to see the guy that I actually was. I didn't want to admit that. I didn't want to see that. But it was going to crumble down. Especially when my wife walked away. That's when I would watch it happen. I'd watch it be a place of where she didn't scream at me anymore. She didn't accuse me anymore. She just got really quiet. Quiet enough to know that I knew that she finally saw me. And there's a place that I knew that she would leave. And I think that was a piece that terrified me more than anything because I knew I was losing control. Because once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. Once you stop trying to prove that you're not the villain, I had no more stage. No more lines, no more audience, no more way to be able to say, hey, I'm the victim. Instead, I was exposed, not because I confessed at that point, but not because I healed, but because you were finally done. And here's the piece inside of it that it gets even darker and even more confusing at times. Like even after all of that, even after I broke her down piece by piece and watched her crawl out from under me, I still tried to flip it. I still tried to play the victim. I had to feel better about myself. So I had to feel the victim of like, oh, my wife left me. My wife abandoned me. My wife gave up on the relationship. Like, I haven't heard from her. I don't know what's going on. I haven't heard from my wife. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, you left me. I don't have closure. There's no goodbye, just silence. There's all these pieces that I still had to play the victim, which is why when my wife finally left, when she walked out the door, when she took her daughter, moved states away, one of the first phone calls I made was to one of the supplies. A fair partner. My wife just left me. I don't know what to do. I didn't think she would. I thought we were working on things. I had to make it look like I was the one that was holding the ashes of everything that burned in the relationship. That I had loved her, that I tried to work to keep the whole relationship alive. And so I'd cry to people, I'd post cryptic stories, I'd play like the wounded man. Like, she's hurt me so much. Because I didn't want to face what was actually real. That I was a coward, that I was a manipulator, that I was a liar, that I was a destroyer to the very things that I pretended to cherish. And still some people believed me. Because I was good at acting, good at framing, good at burying the truth, just deep enough under performance, under charm, under well-timed vulnerability to pretend and to look like I'm a certain way, and became a professional at emotionally laundering all of these pieces. And the worst part inside of this is I got used to it so much that I started to miss the power of that control. The power of being able to rewrite reality on the fly, to be able to convince others, not just myself, that I was not the one that was hurting, that I was the one that was left behind, that I tried, but I wasn't hurting her. I was the one that was hurt. Because I didn't want to take responsibility because it burns, it hurts. It forces me to actually look at every twisted corner of my soul and actually look and say, I did this. I broke her. I drained her. I made her question her sanity, her safety, and her self-worth. And then I walked away like I was the one that was limping, that I was the one that was hurting. Now, I speak all of this and I speak the truth, not because it feels good. It doesn't feel good for me. It doesn't feel good for you. But because I know how many other men are out there doing the same exact thing to you. Playing the victim while he's ripping off your reality, destroying you behind closed doors. Like, this video isn't just for applause. It's not for redemption. It's a confession of this is who I've been. It's what it looks like when the mask falls off and all that's left is underneath is just the rot and the void of a guy that doesn't want to actually shift and change himself. And that's who I used to be. But maybe, just maybe, if I say it plain enough, loud enough, like disgustingly real enough, that someone like you will finally recognize what you're living inside. A toxic, manipulative, abusive relationship. And maybe this time you won't second guess the pit in your stomach that's making you doubt. Maybe you'll trust your own memory instead of mine. Maybe you'll see through the tears, the stories, the pity parties that he's playing, and you'll walk away before you waste another year trying to save a man who's busy trying to make you the villain of his own story. Maybe he'll wake you up to the reality that you don't need to defend yourself anymore because he simply doesn't care. All of your logic, all of your evidence hasn't changed him. All it does is put you in a place where you continue to try to say, that's not me, but it hasn't shifted anything. You deserve more than a man who just needs to feel the victim in order to feel powerful. That manipulative piece, you deserve to have a relationship where you can be believed, where you can be safe, where you can be free. Not because he finally admits the truth and magically shifts, but because you decide that you don't need his confession to validate your reality. The truth is already inside of you. You already know there's pieces inside this. It's been screaming at you for a long period of time. The difference is you actually hearing it. So inside of this, if it landed, if it twisted something inside your gut that made you feel seen and also sick at the same time, like this is your moment. Don't waste another second trying to fix the version of him that only exists in your hope, but doesn't exist in reality. Start treasuring the version of you that already knows that this isn't love. And when you're ready, really ready, to break the trauma bond, to clear the fog, to eradicate the triggers, to step into freedom, then book a free strategy session. Let's rebuild your life from truth, not from the illusion that he's put you under. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Because the only story that matters now is the one that you are about to write, that you're about to shift for you. So go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough today. You've been told it's all your fault and that makes you feel crazy. No one understands you and that leaves you in a place of being alone. You've tried to break free multiple times and that leaves you helpless because nothing you've done has actually worked. It hasn't actually got you free or liberated from this toxic relationship. So you feel crazy, alone, and hopeless. Guess what? That's a lie. Because all it is how you've been raised and conditioned inside of this abusive relationship over and over. And as a result, you've sacrificed your growth, you've sacrificed your worth, and you've been trapped inside of a toxic relationship. What if I showed you the path to freedom? A way for you to actually get free mentally and emotionally from the toxicity that's happening right here, right now. You deserve more. You deserve to be able to heal. And I want to help you with that. If I can help you with that, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Schedule a call there and let's talk.